for the stream to turn on there. Okay. Well, what is up, guys? Frugal BC coming at you with a live interview today with John Mizzoni, John.Algo. So we're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to get into, kind of the use cases of NF domains. We're going to talk about segments that they just released. We're going to talk about origin stories. I always like people's crypto origin stories. I always think that's a lot of fun. So we're going to talk about that, and also, whatever questions you have in the chat, make sure to leave them throughout the broadcast. We'll take breaks periodically to check the live stream and see how that's going. So leave your questions. We've got questions for John. Now, if you don't know what NF Domains is, it's a naming service on the Algorand blockchain. It allows you to have that cool .algo address after your name. And my little story here is that I first, I didn't really know the difference between them and the other service that's out there. I guess we'll just leave that nameless for now. And so I did the other one, and I did a video on it. It's still live. I should probably put a note on it, but I found out it just didn't work seemingly nowhere, including my own wallet, which was kind of a bummer. So NF Domains is the address that has all the integrations. I'm going to leave it to him to kind of explain NF Domains in a little more detail and kind of the use case for it and why. And by the way, guys, if you aren't subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the like button. All that really helps support the channel, keeps things moving along, and shows all this stuff to other people. As you know, my whole premise here is to generally do the experiment, try things out, and let you know how it goes. And I'm always honest about it, the good parts, the bad parts, and everything in between. So, I got links in the description if you want to support the channel for other things. Welcome to Christian, by the way, Christian Cassini from NifGen's in the audience. Welcome. Without further ado, let's bring on John. Hey, what's going on, John?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. Happy to be
Yeah,
here.
for sure. So I guess the thing I kind of wanted to kick things off with is, what would you say is the main use case for NF domains, both like how you conceived it and how it's being used now? Is there any difference between the two, or is it pretty much the way you thought it would be used?
Yeah, that's a good question. We originally kind of thought of it much like ENS and kind of how they have it frameworked. Right. And then we kind of innovated on that model, I would say. We took the parts that we liked and we, added things that they don't have. So overall, it actually came out to be something that we probably couldn't have predicted what it ended up being now. But as far as the major use case, I think it would just be identity. So, tying a wallet address to other data, that's like kind of the base function of an NFT. So, linking verifiably like a Twitter account and a Discord handle to a wallet address, it opens up a lot of things. So it's really identity and discoverability. So just being able to say, Frugal BC, that's you, right? It's like the name that people know you by. So I am John.Algo. People think John.Algo, they think of me. And then they probably think of like poofs or whatever I do in my wallet, right? It's like, so yeah, that's what, yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because one of the big benefits for me is that it's really hard to give people a crypto address. I mean, you can copy and paste, but it's so much easier just to have Frugal BC and say, oh yeah, you can send this to Frugal BC and .algo, and people just know it and they'll be able to send it in.
Totally. For transactions, like the aliasing of a wallet address to like a human readable name, that is probably like the baseline function of all naming services. So that's kind of what all of them do. You know what I mean? And then identity, as far as like how you build. First off, there's no way to really define what identity is. It's fluid. It's a fluid thing, and it's what people want to like show. For example, so like identity could just be as simple as a name. Like you could have no other identifiable information and you could just have a name. So I could just be John.Algo, no profile picture, no anything. But people still know that this identity is, John.Algo, even though they don't know anything about the person. So it's, yeah, identity is kind of a big topic. But
It is, and I guess there's always that. This is something that comes up a lot in crypto. The idea of decentralization versus centralization, and the idea of like being anonymous versus having identity, and it's that there's a lot of middle ground. And I imagine, do you kind of find yourself pulled between those two things in terms of identity, and that you have basically an identity service, but then there's sort of a part of it, anonymity that you're kind of giving up at the same time?
yeah, so I would say it's what you link to your NFT
Mhm.
that would make you doxed, right? Like
Yeah.
quote unquote. So you could just have a name and a wallet address, and that alone serves as a basis to build an identity off of. So I could just be, anything, NPR glass 1.algo, right? I could just be NPR class dot one, and
Mhm.
and everybody could know me as that name, and I could build an
Yeah.
identity around that and still be anonymous. So it
Mhm.
doesn't require you to give up, your anonymity. But if you want to, you can. Like
Mhm.
I'm fully doxxed. Like the whole team at NF Domains is fully doxxed, and that's not only for like, just our personal preference, but it's also for like a business. You want to build as much trust as possible with business. So us being fully doxxed to the world, provides that, but it's not necessary for everyone.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, that would be my answer there.
Yeah, you bring up a good point too, because you mentioned like and having a tagline, or a domain called NPR class, I think you said. So it's something that happened with Twitter when they opened up the ability to get the blue check mark. So what happened was a bunch of people created these accounts in the guise of, say, like Delta or whatever. I can't remember the exact cases. Or like one of them was like a pharma company, and then they got the check mark, so it looked like, hey, this is the thing that's owned by this entity. And then they started tweeting like, oh yeah, insulin's going to be free from now on, and we're able to cause all kinds of chaos. is
Yeah.
there is there any concern about that, in terms of NF domains? Is there any kind of safeguards for, someone like, I don't know, buying like Stacy Warden.Algo and then tweeting all kinds of crazy stuff?
But no, and it's kind of by design.
Mhm.
So we rely essentially on our verified fields to
Mhm.
kind of police this. So, you could have Stacy Warden.algo and no other information in it. That doesn't provide much trust that that's actually her wallet, right?
Right.
But if she has a verified Twitter account and it is the Stacy Warden Twitter account that
Mhm.
just from being on Twitter, right? Like you didn't need to be given that information. You already know her real Twitter account. So then if this NFT has a verified Twitter account and it's Stacy Warden's, it doesn't actually matter what the name is. Like she could be
Good point.
Stacy W.Algo, and that's the real one. And it's real because it has verified, you know, properties.
Yeah, it's true. So you can link it back to all the different social accounts and have get a pretty good sense that this is the actual person or not.
Yeah, exactly. And then the only way that that's compromised is if her keys are compromised. So,
Right.
like, if your keys were compromised, then they could impersonate your NFT because it would have verified
Mhm.
fields. But we enforce when you sell an NFT or transfer an NFT that all the metadata gets wiped. So you couldn't transfer verified fields. So if I sent you John.Algo right now, you would just get the NFT John.Algo, none of the verified, like not my verified Twitter, not my
Mhm.
Discord, etc.
That's good. That's a really important point, I think, that people should know about. So awesome. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So I want to go back in time a little bit. So first off, tell me about your crypto origin story, because I always think these are really interesting. And then also tell me about your Algorand origin story.
Yeah. I started investing generally like in the markets in about 2015, kind
Mhm.
of when I started college. And that kind of got me on the path of like to end up in crypto. So around 2015, 2016, I would say that was the first time like learning about crypto generally, but at surface level, I knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
Skip forward to 2017, 2018. I think it was my junior year of college. I took a blockchain class. It was like crypto and blockchain or something like that. And the guy who was teaching it was an engineer. He lived kind of close to the school. He was a total BTC maxi. So pretty much what the class was on was Bitcoin, but it taught you a lot of, kind of the basics of crypto and, kind of the ethos of crypto. And so I kind of got this lesson in crypto in 2017, 2018, and it kind of took until I'd say 2019 to like really sink in.
And were you an engineering student or in computer science, or?
I was a finance student.
Or finance student, okay.
Yeah, so this was a course offered to business students, but yeah, it was taught by an engineer. So it was like an extracurricular kind of course. It was one that like you didn't have to take, but it was like a, an upper level kind of extracurricular kind of thing. So,
and if I can ask you, how did students in that class generally? Was there a lot of people that were already into crypto or curious about crypto?
It was pretty much everybody in there had no understanding of crypto.
Oh, wow.
Like pretty much no grasp on what, a private key was or a public key, or like they just the very basics. That's kind of what we were taught in that course. And then he kind of showed us like some apps, some dApps that you could use with your wallet. And like he showed us OpenSea, for example, which ends up becoming like a critical part of my life later in the story. But so anyway, back to that. It was like 2019 or something when I first started buying crypto, like heavily buying crypto. And I got into it mainly through NFTs. So I found OpenSea. He showed me OpenSea back in like 2018 or something, but I really didn't start buying until like 2019. And I was obsessed with CryptoKitties. And so CryptoKitties were like my thing. I spent a ton of ETH on CryptoKitties. I got really into it. And those ended up just going to zero, but a good lesson for me nonetheless. And I think in the start of 2021, I was looking for a new job. So I was an accountant and I didn't like it. And so I was looking for a new job, and I was thinking, this is probably a good idea, just start my own business. Cause I'm very entrepreneurial. I have lots of like business ideas. I should just, follow through with one. And so I was going to be like a wealth manager because I went to school for finance. And so I already had passed the Series 65 to like manage other people's money and stuff. So I was like, okay, I could do this. I have some like clients, that I could get. So I quit my accounting job and I was going to do this. So I started the business, whatever. And then I met some people on Twitter, just on crypto Twitter. And they kind of sucked me into starting to work on Algorand projects. And it's just like this weird kind of thing. I started minting Algorand NFTs the start of 2021, and then I started the Reddit page for Algorand NFTs, and that was kind of like the first place for NFTs on Algorand. There were no marketplaces. There were there was nothing, so it was just like P2P trades on Reddit, and so that's kind of how I got into the Algorand scene, was through that.
Yeah, which it's so important to hear that too, because I think we forget sometimes how short the time span of Algorand really is, and especially of like actually having things to interact with on Algorand. It's because when I first started making videos in like the spring of 2020 or 2021, I mean, there really wasn't. I was talking about like staking on your wallet and stuff like that, but there wasn't all these. I remember, I did a video when Yieldly first launched, and that was like the very first project. So it's crazy how I think we sometimes forget that this is all a very shortened time span so far that we've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, like I was asked to co-found a project, and it was going to be like the first DEX on Algorand, right? Because this was pre-Tinyman, and we thought that we could finish it faster than Tinyman could finish Tinyman. But for multiple reasons, that project didn't work out. That project shall not be named either. But yeah, it's wild how kind of fast and how slow things move in some respects. Like 2021 feels like so long ago, but in the same, so it's 2 years ago,
Right.
So that's crypto time for you, though.
It is totally
wild.
Well, how did you? I mean, how did you get the idea to for this particular project for NF domains? Like, how did that come about? How do you think like, hey, I should start a business on Algorand. I'm going to do this particular one.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we were working on a DEX previously,
Mhm.
and then the team broke up because we were just having issues with the founder of that project.
Mhm.
And so the whole team kind of reassembled. We formed Transaction Lab, and then we were sitting there kind of like, well, there's a plethora of things that need to be built. What do we want to build? And the team kind of landed on a domain naming service for a few reasons. One of them being there was none,
Mhm.
there wasn't any on Algorand. And number two, we thought we could do a really good job at it because it's kind of like right in the sweet spot where it's not DeFi, it's not like a scam token kind of thing. It's like a
Mhm.
real piece of infrastructure that uh, we want to we want to do it right, you know. So that's
Mhm.
kind of how we landed on a domain naming service. And Patrick, the CEO of Transaction Lab, extremely talented. And he kind of had an idea early on that this was the idea while we were passing stuff around, and
Mhm.
yeah, just it turned out to be the best idea of the potential businesses that we could go after. Like I'll just give you an example. Another
Yeah.
one was we were thinking of doing an NFT marketplace,
Mhm.
and because kind of at that time, there was two, maybe three, but none of them were
Mhm.
really like you know functioning at a good level,
Yeah.
and yeah, so we were thinking about going down that road, but we're glad we didn't because now there's like 10 of them. So
Right. Right. Yeah. You probably picked a good niche. What's been so you guys have been pretty successful from what you guys are really the go-to naming service. It seems to work pretty much everywhere that I've needed it to work. How first off, how difficult is it to get something like this off the ground? What's it like building in the crypto and Algorand space versus like a traditional business? Maybe some of the differences there. I'm just really curious about when I have people like this on, I'm like really curious about the background stuff, like the stuff people don't think of because they just see oh, here's the website, the thing appeared. But obviously there's like a ton of work that goes on behind the background.
totally, yeah. So we started working on this in September of 21.
Mhm.
So, and then it wasn't launched until June of 22. So we worked on it for, 8, 9 months without releasing anything.
Mhm.
And that's kind of a weird business. You know what I mean? It's not your
Yeah.
typical business where, you're buying and selling something and making like a margin, but you can open right away, right? With like
Mhm.
$10,000 starting capital or something. It's not that kind of business. You need a lot of money up front to
Yeah.
then put the man hours in to build it and then pray that there is a payoff because you
Mhm.
don't
Right.
know. Everything is so like that's something that's really weird about this business is you
Mhm.
cannot predict like anything. So when you go to launch a product, you have no idea the kind of reception you're going to get. Like we were trying to project before we launched,
Mhm.
like our sales, what we could expect, and the range was like like $1 million. It was huge. It was just
Wow.
like we have no idea what to expect. It's one person could spend $1 million. You know what I mean? Like you just have no idea uh, where people are at,
I mean,
essentially.
it must feel like kind of like the Wild West in some ways. Like there's just so much unknowns, like you were talking about. Just this, and there's like not. I mean, now one of the things that really came home from Decipher is just how many projects are being developed on Algorand. But it's not like, oh, 10 years ago, this similar company did this thing, so we can learn from their example. It's like so much is so new. It must be like almost kind of a roll of the dice in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a really good point about there being no like precedent of like how
Mhm.
do we do this. That you face all the time in this industry because you can't like Google it and get an answer, right? Like
Right.
just like simple stuff like tax stuff, like everything is so complicated with crypto, and mainly because there's either not a rule, it's not a clear rule, or there's just very few people who understand it, and
Mhm.
that's just it being a new kind of sector. There's not like your professional network developed around it entirely. So Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. Like while we were designing NF domains, we were looking to the other ones that had already been designed, the other naming services, and we were kind of taking little like bits and ideas from each of them. But we kind of created our own spin on the whole thing. So, and yeah, you just have to have faith in yourself and your kind of ability to reason and say, no, this is better than this for X reason, and yeah, and see where it shakes out. And a big thing with crypto is you're kind of limited to crypto people, right? Like there's no reason for a person on the street to buy an NF domain when they don't even have an Algorand wallet. They couldn't, right? It's so naming services are limited by the kind of crypto ecosystem as of right now. But
Yeah, that's a struggle sometimes. I've had sort of a similar situation. Like I'm a journalist and I also have like a local paid newsletter, and there's only so much I can grow it. I've got a huge audience from Algorand, or at least an audience that's growing, and that does me no good on the local newsletter because no one's going to care about local news,
yeah,
outside of here unless they happen to overlap. And so yeah, it's the audience limitation is interesting, but also it's like it's kind of a blessing and a curse because you also have like a really dedicated the pool that you do have is really dedicated to that. Like people don't just generally casually have algo. Like a lot of them are like, yeah, they're wearing hats and they got algo after their name. They want to have that algo after their name. So it's like kind of a double-edged sword in some ways. Yeah, by the way, guys, people in the chat, I'm definitely going to get to your stuff. So stay tuned. We'll be getting to that in a second for your questions. And if you haven't left a question already, please leave it. But yeah, one of the other things I want to talk about is you guys have been very successful and also don't have a token. I'm not wrong about that, right?
you're correct. We have no token.
Yeah. No, so I noticed that's pretty rare amongst Algorand-based companies or other crypto companies. Can you kind of talk about why you guys made that decision not to have a token?
Yeah. Number one, there's a huge legal issue with tokens and being based in the United States. So all four of us live in the United States, and we are not a huge fan of going to prison. So there's an aversion right at step one where it's like, do we want to kind of pursue this gray area, and kind of the general gist of it was no, we would rather not touch that. But kind of the bigger question is, or kind of a more important answer, I would say, is the system does not need one. At this point, there is zero reason for a naming service to have a token. Like somebody could argue me and tell me why I'm wrong, but naming services already have tokens. They're the names. You know what I mean? Like the name is the ownership vehicle or like identifier. So if I have 10 NFTs, then I should have that proportion of stake to everyone else. So if there's 10,000 NFTs and I have one, then I should have 1/10,000th of a say in whatever, if there's some sort of governance kind of platform, right? It shouldn't be based on how many tokens I buy or how many tokens I'm given in a pre-sale or whatever. So even like a governance model, if you want to turn it into like a naming service run by a DAO, there's still no need for a token. You don't need one. And so unless you know a reason, I'd be happy to hear, if there is a reason that you need one, but
I wouldn't be the guy. I wouldn't be the guy because I'm to ask you about that because or to counter that because I think there's more projects that have tokens than needs them. Like it kind of makes sense for like a play to earn game or something, but it doesn't really make sense for like this token. And I'm like, why do you need a token? You don't need a token. Like I don't get the point.
There are certain companies that use the token as like a funding mechanism. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's kind of like at the heart of crypto is like a lot of these things are
Mhm.
funding mechanisms.
Yeah.
What would be seen in the US as like an illegal security sale, if you're
Mhm.
across the world in some other country, that's totally acceptable to do that. You know what I
All
mean?
right.
So
Right.
uh, I can't shame people, especially not knowing their like location and kind of circumstances. Like not everybody
Mhm.
can go to a VC
Sure.
get a meeting, and get funded like the proper way. So some people need to do this to raise money, and so I understand it. It's not like necessarily an evil thing,
Sure.
but a lot of the time it can be like the company's it can be like their bonus or their equity in the company is their token stake, you
Right.
know. Uh,
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I'm stuck because like I sort of understand why a lot of these projects will come out with NFTs for their projects and tokens and stuff. Because like you said, it is a funding mechanism and it is a way to start, fund. You get developers cost money. If you're even if you're a founder and a developer, you probably need help. So it makes sense to have some sort of funding mechanism. But then I see like these game projects who will be on like season 2 or 3 of their NFTs and their game isn't out. And I think, well, that seems a little much, right? Like you're asking people to buy these NFTs before you've even launched. And so I really I kind of understand it, but I go back and forth on like how critical I should be of that. But yeah, there's some potential issues there, I think.
tokens, you can like see them, generally speaking, I like this phrase, they're a defensive strategy. So if you have a really shitty product but you promise everybody a token, right,
Mhm.
then all of a sudden your project gets a lot of hype and outsiders can't tell the difference. Like they can't attribute, oh, this project is only popular because they're paying people in a token airdrop. You know what I mean? So it's like you could have a really good product with no token next to a really shitty product with a token, and the one with the token is going to get like 1,000x more attention. You know what I mean? Even
Right.
though it's like complete crap. So uh, that's why I see it as like a defensive strategy. It's like, okay, our product sucks, but let's grab all the attention with free money, essentially.
One thing that was really alarming that I learned as a YouTuber was just how very easy it is to create a token on Algorand.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's like 4 fields or something like that. It's 4 fields in a JPEG, and you got yourself a token. You don't even have to put the JPEG in. I was
yeah,
like, I was like, that's it. Like I just assumed there was some technical things you have to do because I remember early on I had someone from Akita on, and I was asking him all these questions about like, wow, this must be like, I mean, you must be really smart to be able to create a token. And then once I learned how it actually works, I'm like, that's it.
yeah,
That's
yeah. No,
scary. I'm like, but then there's all these like, it's really easy to do, but then there's like you said, there's all these like tax implications if you're in the U.S. All these, you're basically creating a security, and you have to be. So it's like a pier that's really easy to jump off, but then you're in shark-filled waters as soon as you jump off, right?
pretty much, yeah. It's people really need to understand the complications of creating any
Mhm.
asset. But yeah, specifically if it's promised like as a financial reward, that's when you kind of get into like the really murky waters of,
Yeah,
okay, this thing looks like a security a lot now,
yeah,
and if they were to get wind of it, the regulators, they're probably going to come knocking because
yeah.
so like that, we wanted to avoid that entirely. And I think, as a word of caution for a lot of other people, like make sure you have a really, really good reason to launch your token with your project. Because another thing that happens is the project will become the token. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So like people
right.
won't even give a shit about the project. They'll just want the token to go up, and they'll sit
Mhm.
on Twitter all day and blah 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 about the token. But they don't care, like, if the actual platform is successful, they don't really care. They just want the
Right.
token to be good. Then they're going to sell it, and they're going to forget all about your project. And
Yeah, Pat Hardery asked, "When are we gonna see FB coin?" Never. So that's the thing. So I was gonna do a video where I just go create a coin, and then do it on the video and be like, this is how easy it is. But then I'm like, then what do I do with this coin? Then I've got a coin.
You
Do I
do it
just
on
leave it
testnet.
there?
You know, if you
Yeah, I
ever,
guess I
if
could
you,
do it on testnet.
yeah, if you want to just do it as a demo, do it on testnet.
Yeah,
Testnet's
that's
great.
probably the best way.
Yeah,
But
and also
what,
that's could be a dangerous video because you could teach like X amount of people, you know, how to do it that then go
right.
like start like some rug or something. But
Well,
eh,
that's how Buttcoin started. It was That's how I learned about it. This guy created Buttcoin on Reddit. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
I tried to reach out to him. I wanted to like have him on the channel, but basically did this post about, yeah, this is how you basically make yourself a millionaire on paper. And it's like he shows the, shows the coin creation site. I'm like, that's it, seriously? It's 4 fields. And then basically you create a pool on Tinyman, and boom, you've got liquidity. And theoretically, obviously, you wouldn't have the liquidity to cash out, but you're technically a millionaire on paper. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, yeah. That's tokens for you. They're
Right.
it's all funny money, you know. It's like token prices are just a function of the liquidity on the
Mhm.
exchange. That's it. It's not
Yep.
like it doesn't actually represent like, you know, tangible assets like company stock. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so tokens are just like
Right.
you saw with like Solana and Serum and uh, uh,
Mhm.
like maps, like all these illiquid tokens that FTX had on their balance sheet
Right.
that were like hyper inflated. You know, like there was like, you know, 5% of the token in circulation, like that kind of shit, and the market cap is like, you know, in the billions, and you know, there's like
Mhm.
2,000 active users. Like NFD has more users, yet this thing is valued
Crazy.
at like 100. You know, it's just wild. People
Mhm.
really need to put it in perspective sometimes when the tokens get like when the price just makes no sense. There's a reason, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
Well, we should probably move on to segments, because I've been wanting to ask you about segments. And tell me the use case of segments and how they work.
sure. So segments are essentially just an NFD that is created off of a root NFT. So a root
Mhm.
NFT is just a distinct NFT, such as John.Algo, that is a root. And
Yep.
then you could mint segments off of John.Algo. So I could create, you know, one.john.algo, and that would be a segment off of John.Algo. Segments, there's quite a few use cases.
Mhm.
One is just to kind of sub-segment your account. So if you wanted to, you know, if you had some brand, right? Like I'll use NFT as an example. So we own NFT.algo. If we wanted to give each of our employees an identity, you know, or alias for their wallets, we could mint John.nft.algo, Patrick.nft.algo, Doug.nft.algo, Gabe.nft, and then assign those to their wallets. We could assign them in a custodial way. So as NFT.algo in our wallet, we could set their wallet address as the address to resolve. So that's a really cool. That's a really cool. That's one use case, right? It's like a
Mhm.
organizational structure where the organization wants to maintain the actual, you know, the actual asset. So like John.nft.algo, say I left the company, I shouldn't be able to keep my John.nft.algo, right? Like the company would want to hold on to that. Maybe it's better to think of like Tesla or something, you know, like Tesla
Mhm.
isn't going to let you keep your Tesla email address when you leave the company. So
Good
it's
point.
a similar kind of idea with allowing organizations to custody these, but yet you can still assign them to, uh, you know, an employee's, you know, wallet that they control and they custody. So that's one use case. Another
Mhm.
use case is just to allow anybody to segment off of your name, and that's what we call like unlocking your segment. So if you unlock your segment, you get to set a price for it, and then anybody can come and mint a segment off of your name.
Oh,
And so this
interesting.
is useful for all kinds of different like projects and brands and stuff. It can just be kind of a loyalty thing. Like I have John.Akita.algo, for example, because I like Kirby, I like the project. So just as like a show of support, I have that. And if I was a really big Akita maxi, I could use that as like my identity, like John.Akita.Algo, so there's kind of that. We've seen people come up with all kinds of cool ideas. Like if you have,
so for all the tens of Frugal BC fans, they could have Frugal BC as their identity, just having they could segment my
yep,
NFT. Yeah.
you could open it up and you could allow people to mint off it. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff that
Nice.
can be done with it. Like we saw one company that is offering discounts if you have one of their segments. So it's kind of like a loyalty card, which is a neat, yeah, that's a neat use case.
So is it taken off? Are a lot of people using this?
I think we have like 600 or 700 segments minted so far. Let me check.
Nice.
625 segments so far.
Oh wow.
And the unique owners have gone up about 200 since we launched segments. So we really wanted unique users, unique owners to like just pump based on segments, because we thought like, okay, if the cost is being brought down to $4 plus 5 algo, like that's a very low barrier to entry. So we thought like, okay, if we can expand the potential pie, then hopefully our share will get bigger. And so maybe it's just taking a little longer to play out, or maybe it just shows how small Algorand really is. But yeah, it's I'd say mild success so far. And it's possible that people are confused too, because I've seen quite a few questions come up in regards to it. People just confused generally on what a segment is. And
yeah, I was one of them. I understood the idea of it kind of being like a subroot, just like a subdomain. That made sense, but I didn't think of like, I guess it wasn't immediately clear how I would use it. But now that you've explained it, I think that makes a lot of sense. So that's good stuff.
yeah, and that's why we specifically did not call them subdomains, because they don't act exactly like a subdomain acts. Usually like in a subdomain, like the domain owner, like the root owner, they would be able to rug you, right? Like essentially if you had a subdomain off of them, but we didn't want that to be possible. So Patrick designed it this way intentionally, that each one is self-sovereign. So if I have John.FrugalBC.Algo, that is a completely standalone NFT from your FrugalBC.Algo NFT.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's probably a good opportunity to segue into our questions. Pat had asked, what's the roadmap look like for future developments?
That's a good question. We don't release a roadmap because we don't want to get it super wrong. We had a roadmap, a year ago, and it looks completely different now. We actually came through on most of it, but not all of it, right? And for various different reasons. And so that's why we don't release one publicly. But vaults are the next feature that we're adding. And that will likely be in the next few months. The contract work is already done for it. Patrick's had it done for a while now, so now it's just UI stuff. And there's a lot of UI stuff for this. So a vault is essentially your NFT is an account, and it can hold things on its own. So we're calling that a vault. And so the contract itself can actually hold assets, transfer assets, auto opt-in for you if you want it to. So essentially your vault you'll be able to toggle accept all ASAs, or require opt-in to accept. So this, we think, will be huge for the NFT ecosystem, the token airdrop ecosystem, because the opt-in requirement is great for a lot of things, and then it also holds certain things back. So this is like that perfect middle ground where you can leave your vault open just to accept whatever people want to send to you, but then your actual wallet, you can kind of safeguard that. And if somebody drops something good into your vault, transfer it into your wallet, and we're going to provide the UI for that. So you'll have like a vault page, and then, just your regular wallets page, and you'll be able to easily like transfer back and forth without ever requiring opt-ins anywhere.
That's interesting. Sounds really cool.
Yeah, and then another cool thing about that
Mhm.
is that you can transfer an NFT with assets in it. So if there's
Oh,
if there's assets, say I have a poof in my vault, and then I send or I sell you my NFT, then you would get the NFT with the poof in it.
mm,
So there's some cool things there
mm.
that yeah.
That seems like a good, maybe possibly a good way to do. You could do like a contest, like for a YouTuber, you could do a contest and load it up with some goodies, like a goodie bag almost. And then, if the winner gets the NFT with the goodies in it or something.
Yeah,
Or you could even sell it as a package maybe, like, oh, you become a Frugal VC supporter and you get this NFT, we send you this NFT with all these goodies or something like that. Hmm.
totally. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of like possibilities. Like, I have my poof vault, for example, where I have like 150 poofs. If for some reason I just wanted to ever completely get out of the poofs, I could
Mhm.
just load my vault up with all the poofs and then just sell poofvault.algo to someone else who wants to become, a poof whale. So it's like, there's a lot of just yeah, we'll see all sorts of things. That's a fun part about it is like, you could think of use cases and then somebody else will actually think of the best one, and it will be after you already launched it and they'll be like, oh, well, we could do this with it. And then you're like, well,
Mhm.
you know, we never even thought of that. So, but
That's really, yeah. I love stuff like that where you put something out and then other people just like play with it and roll with it and find new uses for that. That's really cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure what this question means. I don't know if they're just thinking about the future a decade now, but JT asks, ever thought about NFT in 10 years?
10 years would be probably longer than I've thought.
Yeah.
We've thought out like I would say 3, 4, 5 year
Mhm.
kind of range, but trying to think 10 years out, is that's bold. That would be uh, yeah. I don't. I
It
have no
seems
idea what the world will look like in 10 years, but
Well, it seems especially difficult in the crypto space because so much changes so quickly. We were just kind of talking about Algorand as like how much it's changed in just a year and a half. So yeah, like at 10 years, like who knows what things will look like.
I would say that in 10 years, Algorand will be in such a different place
Yeah.
that if NF domains can maintain relevancy for that entire time in Algorand and really, stay up to date with all the tech features and keep adding our own features and all that, like, man, it's really going to be like a beast of a platform. Um, so
Mhm.
I could say that like, you know, just looking back on the past year and all the features that we've been able to create, uh, thinking about like 9 more years of that would be
Right.
intense amount of like work and yeah, I don't know. I see the future for Algorand as very bright, and I come on these
Mhm.
interviews year after year, and I say that, and I've looked stupid for the past 2 years. So
Right.
hopefully this is the bottom call where I can say, look, Algorand is way undervalued. We strongly believe in Algorand, and hopefully
Hmm.
it actually goes up after this interview. That would be nice.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
One more here from Pat again. He says, has marketplace sales fell short, met, or exceeded your expectations?"
I suppose I'll fall back to what I said earlier about our projections. Like, we had no idea what
Right.
projection should even be. So uh, my expectations were kind of just uh, not sure, and so I'll go with it exceeded my expectations because
Fair
it's a
enough.
bear market. It's a bear market right now. So the fact that we have sales at all and people are just still kind of amped to be in this space, it exceeds my expectations because yeah, it can be dire out there sometimes. At 16 cents or wherever we were at a few weeks ago.
Right. Right.
Um,
And that's, I guess we didn't even talk about that, but you're getting paid in algo, like the funding is coming in on algo. And that's a big variable to add to the whole mix.
yeah, so we make income, right? And that's in Algo, but it's fixed in USD. So like the floor price of a regular
Oh, there you
NFT
go.
is $20, right? So when we make it, it's always $20,
Oh,
but
gotcha.
the amount of algo will fluctuate. But then what happens is we don't sell the algo. A lot of like what we did for essentially the first 8 months was just hold it. And we just wanted to, like accumulate as much algo as we could because we thought, being kind of, call it what you will, the brain dead bullish that, well, algo is most likely to go up. We have cash in the bank. We don't need to sell it. So let's not
Yeah.
sell it if we don't have to.
Right.
And that's kind of the position that we've been holding because we're just bullish on Algorand. So that's been our mistake, right? Because the treasury has went down probably 20-30% in its entirety. So that's kind of a separate issue.
Yeah,
but we're
true.
just focused on stacking algos. So the more algos we can stack, the better. And but yeah, our costs are in USD, so
Right, exactly.
it's
Yeah.
tough.
Well, hey, this has been a great interview. Is there anything you want to leave folks with? Anything we didn't talk about that you'd wanna bring up?
Let me ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
What was your experience like at Decipher as a non-builder?
That's a really great question. First off, and I kind of brought this up earlier, I was really blown away by how many developers there were there, how many projects were being developed on Algorand, how many I hadn't heard about. Like that was
Mhm.
like I met. Did you meet Mud?
Mud, I did
Yeah,
not.
he's developing, or he has a game. I still haven't tried it out. He has a game called So Move that's like it basically operates with your webcam or your phone, and it's like a dancing game, but it's built on
Okay.
the Algorand blockchain. And I was like, that's a big deal. I had no idea that even existed. It was nice to meet people. It was nice to meet people behind some of the stuff that I've been reading about or hearing about or using, and meet them in real life. So that was really interesting. Kind of felt like the foundation didn't really take its YouTubers seriously. It didn't feel like we were given kind of the space to like do anything. We were kind of like almost like we were just interlopers in a way, almost.
Mhm.
I didn't feel like any of the developers treated us that way. In fact, they were kind of the opposite. They were like, "Oh my gosh, it's so great to meet you," and it was very interesting and kind of not what I expected. But I met a lot of great people, you amongst them, so I appreciate that. And I had a lot of trepidation going in because I just had no idea, so I wasn't going to go. It's a really expensive trip, and
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go. And I'd just gotten involved with NifGen. I know they were sponsoring other people. I probably should have been more aggressive and been like, "Hey, send me too." But I was like, that's a big ask. I don't want to, if they want to offer that to me. And then I tweeted something about, yeah, it would be cool if it was closer by. I was thinking about going because originally I was thinking about going when I thought it was going to be like in Austin or
Mhm.
Miami or something again. And I tweeted to somebody else, and then Christian was like, "Hey, maybe I can help." And so they helped pay for a pretty big chunk of my trip there, which was greatly appreciated, and
That's
made
awesome.
it happen. So yeah, very interesting. So I've been a little salty with the foundation. Like I couldn't get any interviews with anybody there. The only one that was receptive to it was John Woods, but then I never ran into him again. He was busy. He was busy the time I ran into him, and he was very gracious. But then he was like, "Yeah, if you can cook up with me tomorrow, we'll definitely do it." And then I just never ran into him the next day. So yeah, I guess that was my. The funny thing that happened a lot was a lot of people were like, "What's your project?" I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm a YouTuber." Oh, well, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Or also getting like I had a few people that were like, "Oh shoot, I watch your channel, man. That's awesome."
I straight up learned about you there. I had never even heard like of your channel, and then you just I pretty sure you came up to me and you're like, you're NFT, right? Because I have my orange shirt on,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, no, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm really happy that we met and that we got to do this. And
What's
yeah,
it
it
like?
sounds sounds like your Decipher experience was overall good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Well, how about for the developer side? I mean, it's a pretty big deal, but you must also feel like you're in a sea of all kinds of other developers. I don't know. What's it like for you guys?
Yeah, it was an awesome it's an awesome experience. Like, I would say, I've had fun at both Deciphers. Did you go to the first Decipher in
No.
Miami? Oh, okay. It was
Mhm.
a little smaller scale, but kind of the same general feel. It's like everybody is there for the same reason. You're all friendly. You know, it's just
Yeah.
generally a good atmosphere. And then when you spend every single day in the space, such as myself, you know a lot of the people, you know, and they become like your friends. So a lot of
Yeah.
my like good friends now are Algorand people. So it's like it's kind of, yeah, it can be kind of like a celebration kind of feel.
Mhm.
You know, because you're constantly working with
Yeah.
these people kind of like on the periphery or sometimes directly with them. And then you never actually get a chance to like go out and have a beer or, you know, just like a regular conversation that's not about Algorand 24/7. So
Right.
Decipher kind of gives you that time to like, you know, get to meet these people and have those kind of just normal conversations about stuff. But
Yeah. I'm hoping to
so
go.
yeah,
I'm hoping to go back next year. I'd like to do, but I'm not gonna go if it's that far away again. And I
I
heard
feel
Qatar throwing around. I hope that or Cater. I hope that's not the place because that trip was just brutal on me. I mean, I loved it, but the actual travel itself was just brutal. I mean, it was 20 for me. It was 24 hours door to door. So I'm in the
goddamn.
Midwest, so I had
Yeah.
to do. It was 3 different flights for me. So
Oh my God.
I was just
I
I
had to
was also
direct. I had
yeah,
to
I was
direct,
on
so I was
fumes.
lucky.
I was on fumes for like all those days, and I didn't sleep very well either.
I didn't either.
No,
2 hours of sleep a night, and then I would go like
you
take
know,
like a 45-minute power nap in like the middle of the afternoon, and then go back and stay out until like 3 a.m. and
oh geez,
just get two more hours of sleep the next night. And yeah, it was, you know, you're coming home from that one feeling a little tired, but
oh yeah, I was actually sick for 2 weeks after Decipher. I'm not really like I don't get sick that much, and yeah, I was actually sick the last day I was in Dubai.
ah, that's
Got on the
bummer.
plane. It's felt a little better on the plane, and like the next day I woke up at home and I was just sick for like I just had a thing that lasted like 2 weeks. It was
Yeah,
bad. So
yeah,
well, John, hey, appreciate you having on, man. If you don't mind, I'm gonna send you away, but if I'm gonna keep you on so we can talk a little bit after
yeah,
to wrap things
absolutely,
up.
man.
Cool. Thanks for
Thanks
being
for having.
on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. That was a really cool interview. It was really fun to talk to John. I think they got a great platform there. It works really well, and I love it. I love it when things you have a team that's just dedicated to building this thing and making it be as good as possible, and they've done a great job with it. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe button. Links in the description if you're watching after the fact for how you can support the channel. I've got lofty gift certificates available, through my affiliate link and a few other things down there. So some goodies. But appreciate that. Thanks again for John for being on, and hope to do a few more of these. We actually got DZ from around the blockchain coming next week. That's gonna be wild and not something I expected would happen. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. But anyway, thanks guys for being out. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. I hope you're doing well out there. Remember, not your keys, not your crypto. Get your stuff off exchanges as much as possible. Diversify. And as always, I'll see you in the future.